Welcome back into CBS Sports HQ. We are getting you ready for all those fantasy football drafts. Hopefully you haven't drafted yet, or maybe just like one of your leagues or something, because we have Dave Richard here. We're going through tight ends today. He is putting them into tiers. You can take a look at Fantasy Football Today's consensus top 12 tight ends with Sam LaPorta over Travis Kelce. We have Dave Richard here. We're going to go through some of your tiers. First, kind of explain, though, and you and I were talking about this upstairs, the way people address tight ends in fantasy football has changed.
It has, because in years past, it was Travis Kelce right at the top, superstar, difference maker for everybody who took him. And then you would wait at least 2 more rounds before taking another tight end, 2 more rounds after that. And the position wasn't deep. It wasn't stable. It wasn't full with guys that could be difference makers for your team. It's changed now. Kelce's getting older. Last year was a down year for him by his standards. And other tight ends, a lot of second-year guys stepped up. And I think that it really has created a different dynamic for the position. Now, almost half of your fantasy league will have a tight end that's viewed as a must-start, no-doubt type of guy. And the other half of the league is still going to get a tight end that they could at least stream for the beginning of the year, or maybe evolve up to that top tier at tight end, one of the top tiers at tight end, I should say. But it's deeper than it's been in the past, and it's a great thing, because we were talking about getting rid of this position in fantasy once upon a time. Just mix them in with the wide receivers, because there's not anybody any good. Now LaPorta's there, McBride's there, Kincaid's there. We'll talk about them all. This is a position that's gotten deeper and better, and it's going to make fantasy more fun.
So let's dive into that. Your top tiers, you do have Sam LaPorta as your tight end 1.
Yes.
And Travis Kelce. So why do we see the switch there? And then when would you draft someone like Sam LaPorta?
I'm looking at LaPorta or Kelce just after the 2-3 turn, and what that means for fantasy nerds out there is right after your first pick in round 3. So late round 2, early round 3, there's a turn there in snake drafts. Maybe like right around 30th overall is the easier way to say that. And what's the difference between LaPorta and Kelce? Well, you can start with 12 years. That's how much younger that LaPorta is than Kelce. They were very close in PPR points per game last year. They were separated by a half point per game. And Kelce, we saw last year, he started off the season looking like Kelce. He got hurt in the middle of the season. I think he played through it. His target volume just wasn't the same. And then in the playoffs, he was Superman. Look at what the Chiefs did this offseason. They added Hollywood Brown. He's hurt right now. He'll be back soon. They added Xavier Worthy. I know that both of you saw what Worthy did in their playoff game recently. They added more targets to this passing game, and that's going to take work away from Travis Kelce. So he's not going to be that dynamo that's getting 8 targets per game. It's going to come down to maybe 7, maybe even 6.5. That's great for a tight end. It's not great for a tight end that we were previously taking as a first-round pick. I think LaPorta's targets will be right around 7. His situation has changed a little bit, not too much, and I think he's just the safer pick to score a lot of touchdowns, catch a lot of passes, and be a top target for the Lions compared to Kelce with the Chiefs.
Okay.
What about in that second tier? Because you've got Mark Andrews, Trey McBride, and Dalton Kincaid, who you both mentioned. They're still all really great options, especially when I'm thinking about the Bills and who they're going to be wanting to target.
Yeah.
Dalton Kincaid comes to mind.
Yeah, and he might end up being the top target getter for Buffalo, just like we could see Mark Andrews be the top target getter for Baltimore. And Trey McBride he's going to be second in targets. Marvin Harrison's going to do his thing in Arizona. But these are 3 tight ends I think fantasy managers can settle on. Once you get to, honestly, early round 4 and into round 5, these are going to be the names that are there. And I don't like this order if it's non-PPR. Kincaid should go ahead of McBride. Manders is still going to be third for me because I love that connection that he's had with Lamar Jackson. And we've seen him step up and get north of 13 PPR points per game before. We saw it last year before he got hurt. He was that dude for Baltimore. I think he can do it again. He's a little younger than Travis Kelce, so we can't play the age card with him like we can with Kelce. McBride saw a ton of targets last year, and really a lot of them came in the final 5 games of the season. There wasn't a true number 1 wide receiver there. Only one of those games out of the 5 did a wideout for Arizona see more than 7 targets. This is when McBride went crazy. He had a ton of targets, had big numbers. I'm worried about his volume, but I'm not worried about it with Kincaid because I think that the whole Buffalo offense has changed. There is a breakout coming for Dalton Kincaid to be the number 1 target getter, ahead of Keon Coleman, ahead of Khalil Shakir, to be that guy. We're drafting him a little bit close to that ceiling by taking him in late round 4 or early round 5, but you know what? If he ends up getting 80 balls for 1,100 yards and 9 touchdowns, fantasy managers will not complain one bit. And in that case, we're drafting him too low if that happens. So the expectations are dialed down from there, but I think Kincaid can absolutely smash in his second season.
A breakout for him, someone we have been waiting to have a breakout for a couple of years now is Kyle Pitts, drafted 4th overall by the Falcons back in 2021. We have not seen it. You say he has been way underrated. He now has a new quarterback in Kirk Cousins. Do we finally buy into Kyle Pitts yet? By the way, he's in his tier 3.
I definitely don't. I am nervous about Kyle Pitts, and I know last year he was banged up and he wasn't himself. He's healthier this year. Amanda, I saw him in joint practices for 2 days in Miami. He did look better, but he didn't look amazing. And that's what I was kind of hoping for from Kyle Pitts. And then Kirk Cousins talked to the media, and I asked him, Kyle Pitts, is he just going to contribute as a physical guy for the team? And he said, yeah, I'm trying to get Kyle Pitts to catch passes away from his body and to run as fast as he can all the time, because he's fast as it is, but he could be even faster for a tight end. And I'm thinking to myself, as Kirk is saying it, why isn't Kyle Pitts doing these things already? And that just, it's a red flag to me. I think Drake London's going to be the top target guy for Atlanta. I'm nervous about people that are taking Kyle Pitts, especially in round 5, but even round 6. I'm not touching him at that point. I definitely like the other names in that tier better. I think they're safer because we've seen it. Kittle's there. He's safer, especially if Ayuk gets traded. Man, George Kittle's going to move up a tier at least, if not 2 tiers. But Kyle Pitts, we've been waiting for the breakout. It's year number 4. I don't know if it's ever going to happen. I don't want to trust it at this point. I'm going to let somebody else take him in my drafts.
We'll see. Maybe 4th time is the charm here. When we look down in tier 4, a couple of younger players, Jake Ferguson, Brock Bowers, though, on here, kind of sneaking into the top 10. Tell us about Brock Bowers, because he's going to have to split time there with Michael Mayer.
Yeah, I think that Mayer will do more blocking and Bowers will do more route running. And Bowers is not your typical tight end. How many guys have we talked about in the last 5 minutes that can line up in the backfield and run the ball or throw the ball? And that's stuff that we didn't see that much from Bowers in college, but he's done it. And then on top of that, he's a really good pass catcher, really good after the catch, someone that the Raiders should use in the red zone. And the Raiders just named Gardner Minshew their starting quarterback. And Minshew last year seemed much more of a caretaker, a short area target thrower, someone who doesn't want to challenge downfield all the time. That could be a little bit of trouble for Devontae Adams. That will not be a problem for Brock Bowers, who will not get double coverage. He's going to have favorable matchups all the time. He could see 6 to 7 targets per game and be a factor once the Raiders get inside the 10. And yes, the Raiders will get inside the 10 at certain points this year. It won't be crazy. They're not going to be one of the best offenses in the league. But I love, well, that's just me saying that they'll be average. I love the talent with Bowers. And so I want to draft talent sometimes, especially when we're talking about a pick in round 9, round 10. I've been known to draft Bowers even after I get one of the top 5 tight ends earlier in drafts, because that's how excited I am about him. But I will take Ferguson first, because I think he can be the number 2 target getter in Dallas. And if CeeDee Lamb holds out, maybe Ferguson is the number 1 target getter. Dak has always leaned on his tight ends. That's my fallback tight end. So if I whiff on all the first, 7 tight ends, I'm going with Ferg. That's going to be my starting tight end to begin the year.
This is why we get stressed out about fantasy, because for me it's like I don't know, whatever. For you it's just like a
no. You got to have a plan A, plan B, plan C, and then plan D is just streaming tight ends.
No. I have a plan A, and that's all I'm going.
Okay, so then you're taking LaPorta in
there
round 2
or fantasy football today. What have you guys got going on this week, today? What's got you excited this week?
We just recorded a Beyond the Box Score episode, so we're getting into all the nuance and stats from the preseason, and I just did a short episode of Fantasy Football Today Express with former NFL scout Waz Izzuddin. And he was a West Coast scout for the Steelers. He's got some interesting opinions on Rome Odunze, George Pickens, Puka Nacua. You can find all of that, both those feeds, Fantasy Football Today and Fantasy Football Today Express, wherever you get your podcasts.
Dave, thank you.